Welcome back to the Brandon Quay Show. We are in the middle of entertainment roundup. We're talking about all kinds of great stuff. And what better than to talk about with my cousin Patrick than Marvel? Patrick, Marvel Phase
Hey
4.
everyone!
Have you seen these movies? The Marvel Phase 4 movies?
Not a one.
I think you've seen all of them. Do you know which ones they are?
You're gonna have to refresh my memory. I don't have everything memorized in phases. Do you have? I thought you were gonna put up a thing on the screen. Hey everyone, I'm happy to be back on the show. I know I'm usually on the couch. I know it's been a while. It's been great to be back. I'm getting a lot of positive responses. But yes, phase 4. I'd love to talk about it. I was told we were talking about Marvel and phase 4, and it's interesting. I mean, if you want to flash on screen whatever the phase 4 was, I like I said, I don't know what the lines are in this. Okay, so that's the image. Do you have a prepared image?
Are you seeing it?
I mean, I see Moon Knight.
All those characters in the background, those are the all the characters who had their own projects for phase 4.
Okay. Well, usually they have like a thing that's like a timeline, and then we can.
I don't have the timelines, but
what I do have is charisma.
I have a list in front of me, which is WandaVision was first.
Yeah. Well, why don't I just send it to you and you can put it up?
Yeah, go for it. I was pulling
Are you gonna fix this and finish this in post, or is that not a real thing?
What?
Here, I mean, there's quite a few cool things we can talk about with this.
Yes, and so number 1 was WandaVision, number 2 was The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then into Loki. This was Marvel Phase 4 for you.
All right. Well, I just sent an image. I mean, if you want to pull it up, and then we could talk about things just to refresh your memory. But what I think is somebody talking about Phase 1, 2, and 3, or are we just going to 4?
We are talking about Phase 4, and
okay. So what I want to do is I want to start talking about the earlier phases of it, because you can't. I mean, just for a little context, not for too long, Brandon, because I know you have your thoughts on.
Of course, we can talk about how everything leading up to Endgame and yeah.
So while you're in the background getting images and things like that, really, you go back to really far back to the modern day comic book movie was really dominated by DC, right? So, Marvel wasn't really even on TV or movies. Were there any Marvel story? Can you think of any Marvel stories that were told?
All X-Men.
All X-Men in the 90s, right? That was their first start.
The first X-Men came out like 2000, and Spider-Man. X-Men and Spider-Man are both Marvel.
So DC they had TV shows. They had the old Superman, the black and white. They had the Batman, all those movies, and like they were really in the zeitgeist. But Marvel wasn't until the 90s. You had the Batman movies with starting with Tim Burton. Superman was rebooted several times, and Marvel just never setting aside X-Men because there wasn't really a Marvel. It was kind of going slow. I mean, to be fair, though, Spider-Man was huge, right? Those Spider-Man movies were like the modern day, quite huge.
Yes.
You want to answer that?
No.
Quite huge. And so then the start of the MCU was Iron Man, and if you've ever seen any behind the scenes features, they were like making up as they go along, but they definitely established the universe of future scientific or sci-fi, and it's kind of funny because the Hulk was also within like a month it was released, and they kind of decided not to go with that version, right? It was the MCU was starting with Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. and all that, and really quite a remarkable start. I mean, if you go back and watch those Iron Man movies, they hold up. They hold the test of time. Phase 1, 2, 3, right? They they tend to call it the Infinity Saga. All sorts of fun characters. I mean, they had so many franchises that they were launching
Introduced
around the Avengers.
introduced at a very gradual pace where we got to know all the characters in a good rate and know and love all the characters, and then it all paid off
Yeah, I mean, really,
in
it
the Avengers
culminates.
movies.
It culminates, and I think we would consider the best two superhero movies from Marvel with Infinity Wars and Endgame. That was a peak MCU. I mean, that was, how do you top? I mean, the stakes were so high, wiping out half the universe. And that leaves the question, what were your feelings coming out of Endgame and Infinity Saga in general, Brandon?
So for me, without question, I mean, I'm always thinking of what's my favorite movie. Is it Force Awakens? Is it Last Jedi? But when I walked out of Endgame, I was like, this is like one of my top 3 favorite movies of all time. Like they did such a great job with Endgame specifically, with the time travel and the humor and seeing all the characters and caring about all the characters, and it was just genius, executed perfectly. No complaints about Endgame. Are you not hearing me?
I didn't hear the last 30 seconds. I was trying to adjust my gain on this microphone, and I just untangled something. What? Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying that it
You
was.
can edit that out, right? You'll never will. But
Yeah, we'll edit that later. One of my favorite movies. It was one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite Marvel movies. Executed perfectly, and no complaints about Endgame. So
yeah. So that leads the question of, wow, so many characters, so many beloved franchises. Now it's time to do Phase 4, and
there was a thread with the Infinity Stones that really tied Endgame together, because you could be in different movies learning about the Infinity Stones,
yeah,
and Thanos and his daughter was in Guardians of the Galaxy. And then also, I think an important part of Phase 1, 2, and 3 is that they all ended with Avengers movies, which an Avengers movies brings everything together. Phase 4 did not end with an Avengers movie.
Phase 4 is over.
Yeah, we're in Phase 5 now. Starting.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can talk about that later. So really, you're coming off of, like, I'd say the peakhood of all these beloved characters, and then they there's gonna be a lot of spoilers here, and the stories came to an end for several characters, or at least a few characters, or it shifted quite a bit. And then you go, like, where do you go? With the stakes raised so high, and really an interesting world 5 years later, or however long the snap was, or the gap, or what do they call it?
The blip.
The blip. Thank you. I'm really an expert in this. And so it's, where do you go from there? And
Let me pull this up. Let me try to pull this up in a. Oh,
Disney.
Oh, for some reason you're not on in front.
It's okay. I'm covered up, but it's not a big deal. You could edit it, but it's not a big deal.
But yes, you're seeing it, and
Disney answered in, I think, a humongous, gigantic way. So everyone's cooped up in lockdowns in 2020, and man, like, the content was just, there was nothing, no content. You can edit that your custom layout, and then you can have me beside you, above you, and then you'll be able to see it. But it's not that big of a deal. It's not a big deal for me not to be on camera. So
yeah.
WandaVision was a remarkable story, and a remarkable continuation of the end game. I mean, that's fine, Brandon. I can, if you shift your head, we're kind of next to it. So, man, all right.
Well, this Phase 4. Okay, the bottom section is the real Phase 4, which is WandaVision, Falcon, Loki.
Yeah. And so
I'm assuming I don't know why there was a confusion with Phase 4, obviously, because some of these projects that says are Phase 4
never happened.
Didn't actually come out.
Yeah, that never happened. But I mean, a lot of these did. So, well, Brandon, can you just put it on back on screen? We can be like, kind of beside it, and we can be in like we just kind of back up a little bit, we can both be in the frame. Now that's fine. So you just gonna scoot over to your side a little bit, and then we're both. There we go. So let's start. So what's interesting about Phase 4 is that this was a huge shift in the way Disney was doing content. So with the streaming wars begun, right? Disney Plus was out just in time for the pandemic. Coincidence? No. And they wanted to do all these new shows. There were existing shows from Marvel that were like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Inhumans, Daredevil, Agent Carter. All those are actually really cool shows. I've seen all of them. And then there's a bunch of there's some other ones that I haven't seen, like the Inhuman ones I have not seen.
There's a few factors coming in on that too, which is that they had the Netflix shows like what's it called? Iron Fist and Daredevil, and the Netflix side, and then they had the ABC side, which was Agent Carter and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There was there are different companies producing different,
or at least it's distributed on different places. But so, and the change in that is what I would say is going from like a 22 to 24 episode serial format to we're going to do 6-shot episodes, and basically they could have been movies or not. It's interesting. And so why or not all of them could be movies. Like I feel like what like Disney Plus is at its best when they do a TV, like when there's a reason that this is a TV show or it's being like a series. WandaVision, that I presume you've seen WandaVision, hopefully, Brandon.
Oh yeah, all the way through. That was the first thing. I'm pretty caught up until the last year or two. So
all right. So WandaVision was like, wow, it makes sense why this is an episode, because they're going through the decades. They weaved in so much interesting. It was just such a complex, interesting story, and made sense of like, yeah, okay, if this is the MCU on Disney Plus, sign me up. And then following that, we had the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which felt like could have been a movie, or it didn't feel like it had that energy. And, Black Widow is a solid movie, a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. I enjoyed it. I didn't see Shang-Chi yet. It's on my list. Eternals is fun. Any Spider-Man movie is great. I'm going to stop there for now. Loki kind of reinvigorated this portion of it, which introduced so many interesting concepts with the TVA, time variant authority. Would you, if you may, Brandon?
Yes, the TVA.
Are you Googling? Yeah, okay, TVA. And again, it was almost like a redemption of, okay, yeah, everyone loves Loki. Such an interesting story and mechanisms and the start of what could be the multiverse. And so at this point, at the end of Loki 1, they set up the multiverse, and yeah, okay, that's the TVA. What is her name? It's
Miss Minutes.
Miss Minutes, yeah. And there's a lot of, they go into it in season 2. So I'm on the edge of my seat. I really enjoyed, and some of these shifted around, right? What if it's kind of a throwaway? Hawkeye, really enjoyed Hawkeye. That was like a continuation of his story, and that was really cool. I really enjoyed that, and kind of carried forth the trauma, and it tied back to Black Widow, which was really cool. And now we're in a scenario which really Loki set up the multiverse. So where are they going to go with this? And this is where things fall apart for me, and I think they do for Alan. So I'm going to go into a big diatribe here.
Okay, hold on. So
yes, sir.
You were saying it was Loki, which I pulled up, and let's see, maybe what's that? Let me have this. Oh no, let me play this. This. Okay. You can keep talking. I just.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. We're just looking at Phase 4 here. That's all in the background.
So now we're left at a point where we know the multiverse is coming. We know what the King dynasty. King is the big guy, the big boss battle.
Introduced in Loki.
Introduced in Loki, and I'm like,
brought back for.
all right, don't get too ahead. So I'm gonna go step by step. So now I'm like, all right, this is really cool. Where are they gonna go from here? My mind is ready to be exploded. Can you go back to that one that has the faces on it because it's gonna help me talk about this. And then No Way Home, Spider-Man No Way Home is released.
December 17th, 2021.
Potentially. I don't know if they
month after Eternals.
I mean, that's a lot of saturation there. Did you see Spider-Man No Way Home?
We saw it together and we watched all five.
That's right.
We watched all 5 Spider-Man movies that played into No Way Home.
I remember that. That was awesome. So you've heard this before then. So I'm like, very interesting concept, but what the way they started it was Spider-Man wants to go back to when nobody knew that he was Spider-Man, because I think that was revealed
at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home,
Far From Home.
Yeah, Far From Home. Yeah,
and I guess that wasn't relevant during Infinity Wars, or that happened in between.
That would be the last movie in Phase 3, which kind of just topped off the Phase 3 was that they did a Spider-Man 2, Far From Home, and he was against Mysterio. Mysterio found out who he was and revealed his identity to everybody at the end of it.
Which doesn't matter to most superheroes, but it did for him.
So it set up his next movie where he showed up to meet up with Doctor Strange and try to have everybody forget his identity, which caused a lot of problems.
And so what they basically did was open up like the multiverse in Spider-Man, and so we had a lot of different Spider-Mans coming together, and a really, really fun movie.
This is after we already watched Loki as well, which also addresses the multiverse.
Yeah, so my beef was that you really set up like the multiverse, and then they set up their own multiverse gratuitously and to interesting effect. But it was like they weren't talking with the Loki people. It was like, well, what about the Loki factor? Like, what does this relate in any way? So what's so strong about Infinity Saga and MCU 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever 1, 2, 3 is that everything felt like it connected. So you have this desperate idea of, okay, now we're doing our own little Spideyverse. And I wanted it to connect in some way. And I said, okay, well, maybe these answers will be answered in Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. And they were not at all answered. That movie was all over the freaking map and didn't appear to tie to anything. And rumors are, or it's been reported, that the writers of that movie and producers of that movie did not even know what WandaVision was about. So the WandaVision story that you want didn't even tie back to WandaVision and like her next steps as that character, because it was like a different version of her. And it was like, oh my gosh, what are you all doing? Like, where is the connectivity here?
It wasn't a different version like by timeline. It just was different writers. So that made things.
What is Kevin Feige doing where he's not like, wait, we need to have this tie together here. Like, this can't just be its own story because that's boring. Like, I want the breadcrumbs. I want the whole timeline to make sense. So it's like, now we have another multiverse that I think kind of was tied up in a nice little package at the end of it. Maybe I don't even remember the movie really. I think we watched it together. I remember watching it once and I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? He has an eye. The CGI is questionable, and I'm like, oh. And then we get to what I would say this is the trifecta of my multiverse is you have Quantumania.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to go and have our own thing. And I watched this Quantumania. And for those that aren't familiar with it, is that they go into the quantum realm. So we're inventing another place to go. And Kang is in there and he's part of it. And he's alluded to. But they like invented their own Star Wars universe when they already have the galaxy and the universe. So it felt like very gratuitous and very offbeat and not great. I mean, it's funny and and all that, but I just didn't hit very well. There you go. And I love these characters. Like I really do. I really do. I really, really do. But and then it
It was
opened up.
a fun romp in the what's it called, the quantum realm.
Well, and it kind of opened up a lot of questions that didn't, like, I don't know, Bill Murray's in there if I recall correct. Like there's a lot of
And, well, story wise, it is a different version of Kang than the one we already met. So the idea is we're going to be meeting a lot of different Kangs.
well, that was the idea, and not so much anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they recast, which they should, why not? But I've heard they're moving away from that.
They did rename the Avengers 5. It's not called Kang Dynasty anymore. They're renaming it.
So that movie was kind of a clunker. But I will say this, like, I feel like Marvel movies are like pizza. Like even bad pizza is good, So like it's still fun to watch. Like
Or it's like it could be a good movie that you enjoyed, but it just didn't tie into the overall Marvel universe of what you want to see in the next Avengers movie, or what you're hoping to see, but you're still getting a movie that is enjoyable.
Yeah, let's go back to the next one. Let's go back to this. Do the slide up. Just let me make some. No, go to the slide real quick. So I want to make some commentary on this.
Yeah.
So, and I'm gonna give you some deep analysis on this. So, okay, Thor: Love and Thunder. I mean, that's solid. Black Panthers. That's a solid. The Marvels. Yeah, very. Did you see that movie? That's a pretty bad still, but
no, that's not really from the movie. This is a cosplay.
Okay.
I just thought it was funny.
It looked like people like filmed in Laguna Beach or something.
Yeah.
So can you put the phase 4 up on screen just for a moment and just keep it there, please?
Yes.
It's just hard to remember. I mean, I guess I can have it on the side here and I can
reference it. Here we go. This is the Wakanda Forever. And then what you want. Yes.
Okay, leave it there. So I thought Thor: Love and Thunder was great. Black Panther was great. I have not seen the Marvels. It's just not. I haven't had kids. Haven't seen it. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I presume you've seen that.
I saw it in theaters. Yep.
So, I mean, I'll share my opinions with it, and I'd love to hear yours. I feel like, it's always tough for me when you're trying to go and you're watching, and I also think it's like the goddamn. No, I'm just kidding. You're fine. I think it's the challenge when you have like a movie, and I think this also kind of happened a little bit with Avengers sometimes, or Infinity Wars, is when you start to separate the characters out too much and they're kind of on their own missions, you don't get to see that ensemble. And I feel like that happened on Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And it was also a major bummer. I mean, like the whole experimenting on animals, like there was a lot of bummer things. Like it's like the backstory of Rocket.
The evolutionist was experimenting on all of Rocket's friends. We found out his backstory, and then he came back to he created a whole another planet of evolution animals who had evolved, and then they visited the planet. That's as much as I remember.
Yeah, so kind of like and then I think, and I presume Star-Lord's going through some sort of Gamora stuff. I don't know. I don't remember at all.
Well, I mean, so Gamora was replaced by an alternate version Gamora. So
yeah, like the 2014 timeline version or whatever it is.
The original Gamora sacrificed herself in Endgame, and then they're left with the new Gamora, I believe.
And Gamora's not warming up to Star-Lord, so it's and it's kind of like, and what I will say to this is that this is my biggest beef is at the end of Infinity or Endgame. They had such a fun moment with Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor, where he's like, I'm as Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I want to watch that movie. Like, I want to watch that buddy movie where they're together. And then they tossed it out within 10 minutes of Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I would have watched that movie of like them interacting and being on a fun, zany adventure. So it feels like they kind of like created a scenario that they didn't pay off on.
Yeah.
And they were all the actors were there. Like they could have. Is there a thumb? Oh, I did a thumbs up and some silly thumbs up thing.
Yeah, that just pops up. You were doing it earlier too. But yeah, so I mean, part of that was this whole what's his face got outed and then brought back in as the writer of the movie.
And so like that was the missed opportunity. So I feel like Phase 4 has been like the missed opportunity phase. If you put now I want to go into a bit of a deeper discussion.
Guardians 3 is considered Phase 5, but the phases have kind of blended together where they don't mean anything.
Yeah, I don't need to be. Yeah, I don't really care what Phase 5 or whatever is. They, whatever. Now what I will say is the Guardians of the Galaxy. So now let's go to Disney Plus again.
Mm-hmm.
So Moon Knight, pretty out there, really interesting, super interesting. And then you have Secret Invasion that came out in its own way, and that's the closest to feeling like Agents of Shield, which is really interesting. So it has that like kind of low street stakes. I enjoyed it. It got a little didn't get critically acclaimed. There was a lot of critiques about it, but I enjoyed it. And then, I mean, Ironheart, no clue. I mean, a lot of these things didn't pan out.
Which is come out.
Now, I want to talk about a couple points here, and I think it'll help our conversation. Well, I feel like there's been a lot of criticism about MCU like losing their way and going too woke and things like that. And I think like I have some opinions about that. So one thing that stands out is Miss Marvel was like the lowest it was like the lowest rated, not rated, but just like the view. Like people didn't watch Miss Marvel. And so for those of you who have not watched it, it's actually a really interesting story. I turned it on and tried to watch it once and watched one episode and I couldn't get into it. That is to say, the reason why is because when something's like high school, I don't tend to care enough because it's like that's not very relatable to me. So I tend to tune out. But it quickly goes out of the high school setting and goes into other outside of the street stakes and goes into bigger stakes.
Yeah.
And into really cool territory. Now, did you see Miss Marvel, Brandon?
Yeah, I've seen the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it, or what was your thoughts on it?
I enjoyed Miss Marvel. I thought it was good, funny, and good action. And I liked Miss Marvel. It was it was a new take on things. I liked it.
Yeah. So and so my theory, and I think that everyone needs to go and try to just sit there for 2 episodes, and I think you'll enjoy it. And you just got to push through a little bit. And sometimes that's with shows. Like for me, like that was the same with Ted Lasso. Like I sat down and watched 2 episodes. I'm like, I don't really get this, and then I went back, and now it's like my favorite show. So
she's a fun character for sure.
Yeah, and they were interesting. And so my point is that got a lot of heat, and I'm gonna say things and my analysis of this whole like representation in movies and things like that, which I think are important and I think are cool and all that. There have been many female characters in MCU, but generally it's been superheroes have been male dominated, and I think if you look at the origins of it, comic books. Do you know? I don't. It's been known as something that's more male people watching it, right? And Disney acquired Star Wars and Marvel to try to capture the boy market. They had princesses on Complete Lock. Like they had princesses, they had the princess movies, they had all that franchise, and so they made these acquisitions. And if you look behind you, you'll see Star Wars behind Brandon.
Yeah, they got me on that one.
They got you on that one. And they bought Marvel to get that market, and and they made, I don't know, tens and tens of billions of dollars off that, which is great. So when Disney starts to put female superheroes forward, which I think is fun and great and relatable, if for whatever reason kids don't show up to want to watch it, I don't know. There's not what can we do about that? You know what I mean? And it's like it's an interesting thing. Like if you, and I don't even know how you would counter that. Like if you were to, like, Disney were to produce princess movies and have more male characters in there, like would boys gravitate towards that? And I don't know. And it's an interesting
because it's a female character, or is it because of the character they made? the characters they made. It looks like the Marvels surprisingly has a 82% score, which is probably low for a Marvel movie. 60.
No, well, yeah, I feel like Black Widow is awesome. I think that so my thought about so in regards to the Marvels, I want to see it. I haven't seen it. I have two young kids. I just haven't turned it on. Like maybe I should do that tonight. It's early. Maybe I'll do that tonight. I feel like so the thing about Captain Marvel is I feel like sometimes she's a little bit of a wet blanket.
I mean,
And so
Captain Marvel as a character doesn't have a lot of personality, really.
Yeah,
In my opinion.
That's what I'm thinking. And so what
not
like
that every superhero does or needs to, but I couldn't even know what her character really is, or Captain Marvel has an audience score of 45%, which makes it unfresh.
Well, the Marvel, and then to this point, Agents of Shield had numerous female characters, and they were actually a very diverse show, and at that it was just fun to watch the characters. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's no, and I'm trying to get Brandon to watch Agents of Shield. We should create a podcast where we watch every episode of Agents of Shield together, and we record it and we post it out there and do the analysis of it.
That's something.
That's a whole other story. So the reason I say that is that gender for me, like neither here nor there. But if someone's a wet blanket or they're not an interesting character, they're not an interesting character. Miss Marvel, they produced a really interesting show, but am I going to be young at girls who don't want to watch that content?
Say that again.
Am I going to be mad at like girls or women who didn't get gravitated towards watching the content of Miss Marvel? No, I mean, if it's there, it's great that it's there. I enjoyed it, but at the end of the day, like I do think that the characters want to be relatable. So it's like,
do they really make these shows for women, or do they have to also, or not women, but girls and women, or do they have to also appeal to their male audience as well? Well, they have to kind of take everyone into account.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like, and I do quite a lot of inclusion work, so I'm not just some random dude saying this. I think that there's like a balance of it. I think that like it's really great that Disney has this and they created it, but like if people didn't show up to watch it, I'm not shocked by it because I do think that people go and they want to watch characters that they may find relatable. Like I'm not going to be mad at women who did, like if Disney did that, says that hey they want to try to attract more girls into the MCU. I'm not going to be mad at girls that are more interested in other things. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, I just know that for the Black Widow movie, they brought in some awesome characters. Like the sister was a badass.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Red Guardian is the dad. So they had a cool little team that they built that was made for a good movie. And Captain Marvel is that what it's called? She tried to do the same thing where they brought in Nick Fury and then her cat, and then they had the woman who becomes like Pulsar or whatever. And
the Marvels. It's called the Marvels. I'm actually gonna try to watch it tonight.
No, I'm talking about the Captain Marvel movie, the original. The Marvels is the sequel.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking about the original, which had Nick Fury, and the cat, and so, but both of those were like Black Widow and Captain Marvel were both there to try to give a woman a movie of her own, because they had already been in the background of other movies, and then it's like, okay, can we make these into movies that our audience is going to want to watch?
And Black Widow is really awesome. If you haven't seen Black Widow out there, watch it. It's really very interesting story.
91% audience score for Black Widow.
Yeah, and that was like peak pandemic kind of. I went to the theaters to watch that. So it's
like delayed like an extra year because of the pandemic. It was supposed to come out like in phase 3, but like it was delayed long time.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the events are. Well, I always recommend going in cinematic or in MCU or timeline order. So, yeah, I mean, thank you. So, I mean, WandaVision had her own show. Wanda could definitely have her own movie. And then so I guess my to put a bun on it. If Miss Marvel is kind of like the Spider-Man of like the teen trying to get representation, which is great. I think it's a great movie for that, and it's also it's an Islamic story. There's different stories about acclimating in America, and then they go. It's just it was really interesting. Like it's one of these things where like the problem with some of these shows is they start slow and you're like, and then they go, and then they go, and then you're just like, I'm on for this ride. You know what I mean?
Hawkeye was a female lead, and I thought that show was really funny and good the whole way through.
Hawkeye's solid, yeah.
She's she's a character that you want to watch. She's like a lot of personality, and
yeah, very interesting one. So then it goes to She-Hulk. Did you see Go ahead.
Only a few episodes.
So I really enjoyed She-Hulk, and this was, I'd say, if there was like a meta, a commentary on woke, on Marvel MCU. I mean, it's so meta and self-reflective because she was one of the original characters that broke the camera back in the. I guess there was a She-Hulk, so there was actually the Hulk. The Hulk was a series back in the 50s and 60s. So I misspoke.
Probably the 70s with Lou Ferrigno. There was a Hulk.
Yeah,
series. That's kind of the main Marvel series of.
Was that it? Okay, well, somebody will fact check me in the comments.
Ill-fated for well, actually, there was Fantastic Four movies in the 2000s too, but then there was like one from the 90s and one bad Captain America from like the 70s. But it's like they had trouble getting movies off the ground and before X-Men, and it's not like big hits were made besides the whole TV show.
Yeah. The camera's all messed up. Okay, so that jogged my memory. So She-Hulk was like original breaking the fourth wall. I really enjoyed this series, and so like when I was watching it, for those that haven't watched it, spoilers are happening. I was like, this is a really big mess of a storyline, and that the last episode kind of pays off on that, where they're like, yeah, we understand that. And what is happening here?
Yeah.
So I recommend it. It was a lot of fun bringing the characters, and I thought it was a really good like reason for why it was on TV or Disney Plus as a series as opposed to just being a movie. So it was really, and it opened up a lot of interesting elements of like Hulk, and Hulk made some cameos. So I thought it was fun, enjoyable, and very just fun in general on that front. And then, if you might mind putting me back up, put that thing back up so I could just see it again. Some final thoughts about MCU. We talked about Secret Invasion. Did we talk about? Yeah, Secret Invasion was very much like Agents of Shield. And the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special was a very cute story. Just fun. Did you watch that, Brandon?
I have not seen that.
I haven't seen that. So now, where I don't know what's considered Phase 5.
I got an answer for that. It started with Quantumania.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And then I had it up earlier, but the ones that have come out since Quantumania. So,
well, what I will just say is that I think a big problem, and I think that they've admitted this, is this was originally supposed to be over the span of 2 years?
Yes.
So 12 movies, 13 shows. That's a lot of content.
Too much.
A lot of content. Too much. Too much.
Hold on. That's what was this? I did that wrong.
Too much. You can put us back up on the main or I don't know. You're living.
Yeah, no, there you go. It's just they introduced a lot of characters. Phase 5 is officially Ant-Man and the Wasp, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Marvels, and then the next one will be Deadpool and Wolverine in July 2024. And then for the television series, Secret Invasion was Phase 5, Loki was Phase 5, Echo is Phase 5, Agatha's Phase 5. Lot of shows. How can they ever bring them all together? We don't know if they ever will. I mean,
I think that
let me say one more thing, which is like when in Endgame they also had Daredevil going, but Daredevil didn't have to be in Endgame, you know. So there can be stuff that doesn't have to come in for the Avengers movies, but
yeah, I mean, so if I may, I think that
I would also say, like, if a big Avengers movie happens, and then we know that the Eternals are out there, or we know that Namor is down in the ocean, we're gonna be curious. Why didn't they come in and help? You know what I mean? So that opens that up too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that okay. So let me just. It's interesting. So the question now becomes, how do you right the ship? So I think that the ship needs to be rotten, or it needs to be righted.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Can it
and
still be done?
what's that?
My question to you is, can it still be done?
I think that the conditions can be that they can,
Yes, sir.
because I think that what you need is you need somebody, and the person who's already done it, which is Kevin Feige. You need somebody saying, "This is the vision. This is the story we're gonna. This is gonna be the big payoff we're gonna do in 6 years from now. How can we tell interesting stories that lead to that?" And
This is
there isn't been any of that.
this
Everything's
is
been
this
desperate.
phase 4 through 6 is known as the multiverse saga. So
Well,
there
they failed. It's terrible so far. Really.
they
I mean,
threw
I don't say that.
they threw a lot at the wall. They added a lot into the pot, and that is the question: is can they right the ship? Can they bring it all together? What will the next Avengers look like? These are the questions that are on the table.
And I mean, I think this may go down as the worst creative collapse from a storytelling nature of anything I can think of.
Meanwhile,
Uh,
they're making $1 billion a movie, and their
they're
series
not
is
making $1 billion. No, these movies are not doing great.
not all of them, but Black Panther did good.
Like
Quantum
what's
Quantumania probably brought in a lot.
I don't know. We're also in post-COVID where who goes to the theaters and it's challenging and all that. What I'm saying is they know they've admitted that they need to do less, and which I think makes sense. Like
And
I
did
think
they, along with that announcement, and I should know this, but did they like pull anything off the schedule when they said they have to pull back?
I mean you can look
I
at that. You
did,
can pull
what
that.
I do know is that Eternals 2 has been canceled.
Yeah,
So that we will not see what happens to the Eternals in a full movie.
and that hurt. I just saw like a TikTok where the guy was hurt by that. They really put their heart and soul. And I actually watched that. I didn't mind it. It was an interesting movie,
It
but it
was a
was
it
just too
was a great
much.
it was a it was a great movie, but it wasn't connected to any portion of the Marvel universe as of yet.
Yeah.
And then they were introducing more stuff. They were introducing the Black Knight, like a medieval superhero towards the end, and also the Harry Styles character. They were bringing a
I
lot.
wanted all of it. I was like, all right, man.
Yeah, and as far as Quantum Mania, it only brought in 476 million with a budget of 275 million, which is like a $200 million profit or
Yeah,
whatever.
depending on marketing, depending on how much
Like,
they
they
put
were,
on.
I guess. I mean, maybe I'm living in the past where they were hitting $1 billion for Endgame and Black Panther, the first Black Panther, and then, but I don't know how they're. Yeah,
So I mean, so my suggestion. Oh, and this is the really interesting thing about like Loki 2, which I know you haven't watched,
mm-hmm.
is they basically closed the loop on the multiverse in that
Mm.
they give pave way, and I think Alan may have alluded that in a previous episode. So where does this go from here? People did not like Secret Invasion. They killed the characters off. They killed. Have you seen Secret Invasion? You haven't seen any of this stuff. Okay.
So you're saying even these projects I haven't watched yet, they're doing further damage to the story potentially.
I think that there are okay, so that I feel that and it's hard. They were riding really high and had great creative juices flowing from after Endgame. And WandaVision was really cool. Loki was really cool. And there's been bright spots. I mean, like there's been ways that they've handled it that have been good, but it feels like they're rudderless and they don't have that overarching idea. Like they're all kind of on their own silos of information. And I feel like when I go back to if you go back to like early MCU, they were introducing characters and some not it wasn't like every story, like every Thor movie tied back to the original. but they were fun movies to watch, and they usually did have some impact on something that was happening or introduced another concept or introduced characters and things like that. And so with such an oversaturation of that, I think you like people don't know where to point their eyes. And unfortunately, I'd say Phase 4 definitely made a point of trying to tell diverse stories with diverse backgrounds and all that. And I feel like it wasn't the woke, it was the poor storytelling and the poor planning that led to these stories that didn't go anywhere. And were not interesting and didn't have the proper introduction and the overlap. Like if you had done some sort of movie like, and then I also think they wrote off beloved characters that I think had more stories to tell. Like if you did a Captain America series of him back in the 1940s or where he traveled back to and just saw him, because of course he's not going to retire. He's going to that would be really interesting and captivating with Agent Carter.
Sure.
Them back together again, which they inferred is what happened. And with the whole 1940s crew, that'd be awesome. If you could cover a lot of ground on that. You could do a movie around it. You could do all sorts of things. If with Robert, I know with Iron Man, his story feels, complete. Like I don't think they need to bring him back via multiverse portal or anything like that. Like that, he really did a lot, but it's hard. It's a character you love, So, but Doctor Strange has legs, but he's kind of rudderless right now. Like I don't even know what he's up to. You know what I mean?
We saw what he was up to in Multiverse of Madness. He went to the multiverse and back again.
But like that version of the multiverse, which is different from the King and the version of Loki's and the version of this and the Spider-Verse. And I don't know. I think that it's interesting because Deadpool, they're bringing in some more characters, maybe, and it's coming out.
Sure.
There are ways that they can right the ship, but I think it's going to take time to gain back the trust of the audience to know that Marvel isn't just oversaturating the market with content. That when it's a Marvel story, it's going to be really good and it's going to be interesting and it's going to connect into some bigger web. Like they just oversaturated things.
There's well, in all the projects I've seen, there hasn't been a lot of connective tissue between the other timelines. Like everything has kind of become a free for all.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Phase 4 and 5 is all about, is just everything becoming a free for all. And then the question is, will it all be brought back together? Will Kang, the whole Avengers plot line for the future, who knows who the Avengers would have even been, but it was all tied to Kang. Will Kang still even be a character because of the
No, they've written him out. Well, and that's the issue, is like I feel like if you go back and watch like MCU 1, 2, 3, it is so solid. You go from like Thor to like Civil War, which is like incredible, and which is basically an Avengers movie, and you have all these cool, interesting things happening. And so it's like when these movies get so big, but they also showed how you can do smaller movies that are interesting, like Black Widow, which is a part of this. So it's like, I think that like this is interesting. I think a parallel to this is in the 90s, early 2000s, Disney Television Animation Group started creating all these like spin-off series and shows and prequels and sequels and 1.5s of all these Disney animated movies.
Yeah.
Like, Cinderella Twist in Time and, Lion King 1.5. And
yeah.
It just felt like they weren't cohesive. Like I need somebody in there saying, what is going to be this?
Well, let's be honest.
Let's tell a cool story.
It's a payday.
I'm available, Marvel. I will come in and I will write. I will help. No, go ahead.
The ship needs to be righted. I was just saying, let's be honest. It's a payday. They make these sequels just to cash in.
Well, or they didn't.
Which ones? I'm saying for Disney. I'm saying for Cinderella 2 and 3.
Oh well, yeah, that's yeah.
So as far as Marvel is concerned, like when they bring in Eternals or bring in Shang-Chi,
I don't even want to bring. I think that there was an appropriate amount of bringing in new characters like, bringing in an interesting, but like, I don't know this. Did Shang-Chi connect to an overall storyline that we were trying to tell, or did it bring in?
Well, I mean, I'll tell
I
you
didn't see
just,
it, so
I'll tell you in a general way that almost every movie I've seen almost opens a whole new.
that's a problem.
Yeah, we have a new challenge in the Shang-Chi world that includes the 9 rings or with 13 rings or whatever. And but that doesn't connect to the multiverse, and who knows, maybe that you could use the rings to write the multiverse or something along these lines, but you don't see the connectivity yet of any kind.
Yeah. And maybe the Marvels, I'm gonna try to watch tonight. Maybe it saved everything. I don't know. Brandon, it's been a lot of fun. Overall, I'm bullish on MCU. I love the MCU. I really do. It's just like it's so interesting because I feel like you had like to go from Endgame to WandaVision, which was just such an interesting, captivating show, to Loki. But amongst them, you had a lot of things where you're just like, what is this? And what are we doing here? And I don't even mind when stories are just kind of their own stories, like Moon Knight. But when you're watching a Marvel movie and your expectations are, is this gonna here's what I'm gonna say. Introducing new characters, okay, that's a new character and a new universe and whatever you want to do with that, fine. When you kind of unwind a lot of interesting stories of the characters we do love and want to see, and you take them on really strange places that doesn't seem to be needed, that's the question. So, Brandon, I always love coming on a show. Love to be back whenever you want me.
Final question before you leave.
Yeah.
If you saw one of my previous episodes with Alan, maybe you didn't watch it all the way through, but the question, even in the title, is Deadpool going to be the savior for the Marvel universe? Did you watch the trailer for Deadpool?
You know, it's funny. I was watching your show and I paused it and watched it, and inconclusive. I thought the joke about like this may be Disney's first time doing a pegging joke or whatever. That was really funny.
There was that, but it was also, he looks like he's going to be getting into some time travel and merging the X-Men universe with what is in the MCU.
It felt intentionally generic. Like it wasn't specific. It was like
harsh criticism.
No. I mean, it's like the TVA, but like that didn't really tie to. And then depending on where the timeline is, it's all very questionable. Brandon, watch Loki too.
Yes, and we'll talk about it on. Maybe we'll do a Phase 5 Brandon K show.
I don't even freaking know what Phase 5 is, Brandon.
That's what we're going to talk about, and I will watch Loki, and we'll see you. We'll catch you soon.
Everyone, please make sure you like, follow, subscribe to Brandon K Show. How do they find you?
Brandon K Show on Instagram, and they can find you at Real Patrick Kling on Instagram, and on LinkedIn at.
I think Patrick Creates.
I
will just say this: I go and I go on YouTube. I go Brandon K Show and like a bunch of other things that fall in, even though I'm subscribed to you. So I
guess it's because the real thing is Brandon K Videos.
Brandon K Videos. Okay.
And then I can't change it at this time, but Brandon K Show will get its act together here shortly.
So I will just say this: MCU 4, mixed bag.
Phase 4, mixed bag.
Redemption is spelled MCU. And I will see you later. Love you, Brandon.
Oh, I'm looking for my. There we go.